All right, so here's your pink foldable. So here's the deal. The first thing you should definitely highlight. Do you need to move your seat? Okay, then you're no side conversation. New stuff. Okay, so the first thing you have to remember that this is only for right triangles. So when you guys had your green sheets in your notebook, that was for every single triangle, side angle side, all of that stuff. You're gonna get 2 pink foldables, and both pink foldables are only for right triangles. So you need to make sure that you're only doing this with triangles that have a 90-degree angle, okay? So that means it either has to have the box in the corner, or they have to say 90 degrees, or they say the words right angle. Yes, you can fold your foldables if you want, so it looks like a little thing, but so it's up to you. Okay, so for trigonometry, this is all you have to memorize for trig. Right here, you're looking at it. So, ka, toa. Got it? SOHCAHTOA. And you gotta be able to spell it right, otherwise it's not gonna work. Because it's like a little mnemonic device that the S stands for this and the O stands for this and so on. So, SOHCAHTOA, gotta spell it right. We're gonna make some little tweaks to this little picture right here. So make sure you have some color that's gonna show up. So really this is gonna be S equals O over H. And this is gonna be C equals A over H. And T equals O over A. So you might want to add that in color to your foldable because it's actually going to be fractions. Add to your foldable. Add to your foldable so you can see it. So in trig, the 3 functions we're going to be using are sine, cosine, and tangent. So look right here, sine is S-I-N-E. Now it's abbreviated the first 3 letters, so you might see sin, but don't say it as sin. It really is sine. Then we have cosine, which is abbreviated COS, cosine. And then we have tangent, which is abbreviated TAN. Okay? So go ahead, grab your calculator. There should be one on there's 2 on every desk. So do you look where the buttons are? You see the sine, cosine, tangent buttons right here? Right in the middle? So we're going to be using those. Now here's the deal. On this calculator, you cannot do sine, cosine, tangent of these right triangles unless your calculator is in degree mode. So right now, clear your screen, turn it on. At the very bottom, there should be a little baby word right here on your screen. What does yours says grad. What does anyone else's say? DEG. What does anyone else's say? Rad, R-A-D. Okay, so it has to say DEG. So even if yours is already set, let's go to the button. So you see this degree button, it says DRG right here. Hit the degree button. Okay, and so it'll underline one of these, right? Now obviously we want to have underlined one of these. So which one are we going to underline? DEG. Okay, good. And then go ahead and move on. So now it should be, go back in and type something like 5 times 5 or something like that. And let's see. DEG, underline, enter. Wait, mine's not on degree. Okay. Okay, did you hit enter? Does it say DEG now?
Yeah.
Okay, is everyone's on DEG? Yeah. Okay, always check that before you start. Okie dokie? Okay, we're gonna set that down for right now. We'll go back to that later, just making sure you know where the buttons are. Okay, so let's go ahead and do each one of these little pictures. So make sure you have these little pictures up in the middle. Okay, go ahead and grab a color, any color. I'm gonna have you fill in the circle on the first picture. So let's see the little baby circle. So pick a color and fill him in any color you want. Do pick a color. We're going to start out doing all of our problems by picking the angle that they want us to work from. And so these are circled for you. Normally we're going to circle the angle we want to work from, but there's already a circle here. So I'm going to fill in my circle green. Everyone ready? So you're going to have to pretend like you are standing on that circle to name your sides. Now here's the deal. Last unit, we did right triangles, right? So quick review, we have this right triangle, right? Now remember last unit, we had this labeled as a hypotenuse, right? Because he was the side opposite the right angle. And then we had these other two little guys as legs. So this was a leg and this was a leg, right? Now for this unit, we have to further name these two legs because we can't have two things that are called legs. So we need to further name them. Okay, so here are our options. We still always have hypotenuse, right? And then we still have two legs, right? But the legs are going to have special names. Okie dokie. The legs are either going to be the opposite leg or the adjacent leg. So we still have hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle, and then we have two legs, opposite or adjacent. I would not have your phone out. This is brand new stuff. You don't know any of this stuff. So opposite and adjacent. Now remember, opposite means opposite. If I talk about the classroom that's opposite of my room, I'm talking about over there, right? The windows opposite me are way over there. Adjacent means next to. Like that room right there is adjacent, next to me, right? These windows would be adjacent if I was over in this corner, right? So opposite means across from, and adjacent is going to mean next to. Okie dokie? Just normal words in the English language. Okay, so let's look at our picture here. Now we are going to pretend like we're standing on this little green circle. Okay? Now this has three sides. See them? We're going to name them either hypotenuse or opposite or adjacent. Okay, so if I look at this green circle, I always do hypotenuse first because he's the easiest to find. So which side is going to be my hypotenuse in this picture? N, because what? It's opposite the right angle. Same as right here. So put hypotenuse on this guy. I'm going to abbreviate everybody hype and op in ADJ because I don't want to write out those words. Okay, good for hypotenuse. Now get back on your green circle. Now which side would you name opposite it? Go across. Remember, opposite is across there. So he's going to be P. So let's put opposite on this P, right? And so adjacent means next to. So M is going to be my adjacent because this side is actually running right into touching, right? Adjacent is next to or touching. So I have labeled all three of my sides. Now here's the thing. You might tell me this. If I'm standing on this green circle, isn't the hypotenuse also adjacent? And it is. But he already has a name. He's already the hypotenuse, so he's out of the mix. That's why I always do hypotenuse first. Okay, are you okay to name them? Yes? Okay, so here's the deal. If you look at sine, sine is equal to what? Opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? So for this problem, my sine, which is the opposite? Which one of these is the opposite? P over hypotenuse is N. So it'll be P over N. Now for this problem, there's just letters there, but you could have numbers. Like one of those, like the hypotenuse could be 10 or 6.2. So you're going to be putting them into the fraction. Okay? Let's try cosine, the middle one. So what's the very first thing we did? Pick the circle, fill in your circle. I'm going to do him pink. Okay, so I have my circle. I'm going to be working from that angle. And that means I need to name all my sides from standing on that pink circle. So name your hypotenuse, and then your opposite, and then your adjacent, right? So who is the hypotenuse of this M in this case? So I'm going to call him hypotenuse. Who is opposite of my pink circle? N. Then who has to be adjacent? P. So this is my adjacent. So remember, your hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, but then the opposite and the adjacent. Now, what if I would have circled this other angle up here? Would any of these words change? Yeah. If I circled this one, which words would stay the same and which would change? Hypotenuse would stay the same, but wouldn't this guy be now my new opposite? That's why it's important to pick your angle that you're going to go from, and they'll either tell you or they'll ask you about that specific angle, so it'll be obvious which angle you're supposed to pick. All right, go ahead and do tan. Oh, wait, let's finish this down here. Okay, so remember, sine was S-O-H, right? So, oh my gosh. Make sure you spell it right. Ka, A-H. Okay, so that means I need adjacent over hypotenuse. So what's my adjacent? P over hypotenuse, M. P over M. And the last one is tangent, toe-a. So, toe-a. Go ahead and do that one, and then we'll check it real quick after you're done. So go ahead and do that last one by yourself. So you colored your circle, yes? Okay, what did you do next? Which one was the hypotenuse? N, so you put hypotenuse here. Opposite was what? M. He's opposite, across from, and this guy up here is going to be adjacent. You with us? And then TOA, that is your opposite over your adjacent. Opposite was M over adjacent P. Okay, can you spell SOHCAHTOA? Yeah. Okay, turn your book over to the back side. Where it's blank. You see the blank page? Go ahead, write SOHCAHTOA without cheating. Spell it right. Write it. The little symbol. Did you memorize it yet? Who memorized it already? Did you write it? Okay, write it out and then write it as fractions next underneath there. Remember, keep doing the same thing and you'll expect the same exact results. So if you want something different, do something different. Okay, so what should it look like? S with what? O over H, and then what? C with A over H, and T with O over A. If you don't know that, you can't do trig. So you just got to memorize it. So, and if I ever do trig problems, I write this up at the top of my paper exactly like this every single time. And that way I know what they are. Okay? So if you didn't get them right this time, make sure you study them so that you can get them. All right, go right underneath the picture. Go back to the front of your foldable. Still in the front of your foldable. So right under the picture are some important little bullets. Okay, the first one we just talked about. So go ahead and highlight that your calculator needs to be on degree mode. You will get the wrong answers if it's not on degree mode. So if you're sitting next to somebody and you're both working on a problem and one person says, I got 1.27456, and he says, I got 6.238. The first thing you should both look at is, does it say degree at the bottom of your calculator? Because you will get wrong answers if you don't have degree. Okay, so check that always first. I will try to remind you as we start class, but I know some people don't listen or you might not be here when we start class, so make sure your calculator's on the correct mode. Second important point, never, ever circle the right angle. Never, ever circle the right angle. Never circle the right angle. Notice on the 3 examples on the front, I never circled the right angle because you can do trig from that because your opposite and your hypotenuse will be the exact same thing, won't they? There's going to be a problem there. It's not going to work. So it only works from the 2 other complementary acute angles of a right triangle. So that's the one we're always going to be circling, okay? I mean, we're going to be circling one of the other ones. Never, ever the right angle. All right. Next. If you're trying to find the side of a triangle, you're going to use the plain old sine, cosine, tangent buttons, which I showed you. Turn your calculator on. Does it say degree on the bottom? Yeah? Okay. So if I want to try to find a side, just go ahead and hit like the sine button. See what happens? What pops up on your screen? Sine with the parentheses. And so in that little parentheses, you put the information you would want to put and just hit enter. Okay? That's what you do when we want to find a side. Okay? Huh? You don't have to close the parentheses. If you actually hit enter, it automatically closes for you. Or you can close it if you want, but you don't have to. Okay, next one is angle. If I want to find an angle, I'm going to use the second button and then sine, cosine, tangent. And we'll see what that looks like after you highlight that. If you want to find an angle, you're going to use the second button. Okay, so instead, this time, pretend like you're about to find an angle. So you're going to hit the second button first. Hit that DGR button. And then you want to underline degree, and then hit enter. Does it work? Does it say degree now? Okay. If you want to find an angle, remember hit the second button. So go ahead and hit the second button. You'll notice right down here in the corner, it'll say second. Do you see it? So that means your calculator knows you did push it, right? Yeah, well, you already hit the button. Just if I just hit second before I hit sign, it's down next to the second. Okay, I hit second sign. What's different about this? It's got that -1. So that is the inverse operation. So this is when like a -1 is going to show up as a power. So if you're trying to find an angle, you're going to hit the second sign, and then you'll have the negative, because you're actually finding the inverse of it. Okay, good on buttons? You know where everyone is? You ever do that? Okay, now the bottom of the foldable, we're going to hold off because we'll talk about it when we get to a problem like that, which we won't get to today. So don't worry about this very bottom chunk. We'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and open our foldable. No, it's not similar to last unit at all. This is totally different than anything you've done. Okay, so you have a note at the top of your paper. What's the note at the top of your paper say? Use 4 digits. So that means when you get a mess on your calculator, use, if it says 3.678915, whatever, like on there, you're going to use the 3 point and then use 4 whole digits. Got it? We're going to use 4 digits after as we do our work, and then when we do our final answer, we can round. Because if you round too early, then your numbers get way off. So we're going to write out 4 digits past the decimal every single time. And you could round after that 4 or truncate, cut it off after that 4. I don't really care. Because if you have 4 out, then you'll still get accurate answers. Okay? So that's what that note says. Now you guys have this little, your little cheat code. I put yours at the bottom corner. Do you see it down there? So that way you didn't have to flip to the front if you haven't memorized it yet. If you memorized it, then obviously, sweet. I just pasted it up on the screen so we had it for each problem if we needed to look at it. Okie dokie. Okay, ready to do number 1? All right, number 1 says, what is the side length of X in centimeters? Okay, so we want a side or an angle? Side. So you might want to underline side, because side is going to tell us what kind of buttons are going to be using. Are we going to be using the second button or just the plain buttons? Plain buttons. So for side, you're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent, right? You want to know how I remember? I think of the SI and the SI. So if I think of a side, you see how it has SI here, and then sine is just SI. So I always note a side, I want to just use the plain sine, cosine, tangent. Okay, so we have a picture. How did we start the other problems? We circled an angle. Which angle do you think I'm going to circle in this picture? 60. The 60. Okay, so go ahead and get a color, draw a little circle there. Okay, there he is. So my first step, I'm going to pick my angle, and now I need to do what after I have my angle? Find the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent. So go ahead and label your 3 sides of this guy from your little circled angle. So label each one however they go. What side did you label first? Hypotenuse. Where's it at? It's up at the top. So you put hypotenuse here, right? What did you label next? Opposite, which is who? The X, right? He's opposite. And then this guy's adjacent. All right. So now we need to think about, well, anytime we use one of these, sine, cosine, or tangent, we had to have just at least 2 parts, right? For sine, we needed opposite and hypotenuse. For cosine, we needed adjacent and hypotenuse. For tangent, we needed opposite and adjacent. So let's look at our picture and see what we have information of. Which one of these 3, hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent, do we have no information about? Hypotenuse. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to cross out hypotenuse. You're not going to use him because he has nothing to offer you. Got it? He doesn't have anything by him. You don't know anything about him. Nothing. Now, which ones do have something to offer? Opposite. So box that up. That's good information, right? Uh-oh. It'll do that if the internet goes out, so. Okay, so let's go ahead and box up this, because this is good information that we can use, right? And this is also good information we could use. So we have selected our two things that have good information, right? Hypotenuse has none, so we got rid of it. So I'm going to put down the two things that I have good information about. I have good information about the opposite. I'm just going to write this really little here. And I have good information about adjacent, right? I got nothing about hypotenuse. Just opposite and adjacent, right? Don't fall asleep. You guys are all at the exact same advantage right now, right? You're all starting from scratch. Don't lose today. Okay, so let's look at our options. Okay, so we have opposite and adjacent. So do you think we can use sine? Why not? Because we, look, it says opposite hypotenuse. We don't have it, so we are not going to be able to use sine. Okay, let's look at cosine. Why no? Because we don't have this h, right? Are we good with this guy? Winner, winner, chicken dinner, right? So that means that tangent is our winner. So let's jot down tangent. Tangent is the one that's going to work in this case. That's how you decide which trig ratio to be using. It's the one that you have stuff about. If you don't have anything about a hypotenuse, you can't pick something with hypotenuse in it, right? Okay, so we have picked tangent. Yes? Okay, you guys have some room right underneath the problem? Yes? I'll write mine right next to it. So here's how we write it. We write tangent, and we're going to abbreviate it TAN. We put tan first, and then we put the angle measure in, if we know it. Do we know the angle measure? 60. So put 60 right here. Equals. We want to do what? Opposite over adjacent. So we need to make a fraction. What's the opposite? X over adjacent, which is 13. We don't have to put centimeters there because we could put out our final answer after we calculate stuff. We did x over 13 because it was opposite over adjacent. That's why you got to have everybody labeled here so you know what to put in where. All right, good so far? Now pick up your calculator. It's on degree mode, right? It should stay on degree mode while you're using it, obviously. Okay, are we finding an angle or side? Side. So do we hit the second button or not? We don't. So just hit tan. So everybody hit tan. Now on your screen you should say tan with the parentheses. Put in 60. Tan, 60. Almost all the time you'll get a hot mess. Okay, just so you're warned. And that's why I say write out to 4 decimal places. Okay, so look at him out to 4 decimal places. Remember, you can either cut off after 4 or round at 4, whichever you want. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so what am I going to, you're going to be solving this just like an algebra problem. So think of squiggly down the middle. And tangent of 60 is going to equal something. It's going to be this mess, right? So what am I going to write here? 1 point what? 7, 3, 2. And I can either put a 0 or a 1, right? I'm going to put a 1 only because look how I have a little space there. Because it was a 0 and a 5, so I can shove it if I want. Equals. On the other side, I still have x over 13, right? Can't do anything with that. That's a 13. All right, good so far? Okay, now we're going to do algebra. So when you have this, remember when you have a fraction on one side and a regular number on the other. Do you remember what we have to do? We need to put him over 1 and do your cross multiplying. Okay, so let's put this over 1. And then you're going to cross multiply this times this, right? And that times that. You know your little butterfly method? Okay, so that means, and it doesn't matter what side you put stuff on, but what is 1 times x to do this side of the butterfly? 1 times x. 1x, which is just x. Okay, so I can just put x if I want. Now on the other side, I got to do that junk times 13, right? So I'm hearing a 22 point what? 5, 1. Wait, I don't know what it is. I don't have it on my calculator. Put a 2 right here. Because did you have to shove that? Now for this one, we don't. This is our final answer, so we don't have to use 4 digits. We could just round it like a normal person to the 10th place or 100th place. Just while you're doing your work, keep it 4 digits out, and then at the very end when you give your answer. Now this is rounded, so I'm going to change this to squiggly, okay? So I know it's approximately. So approximately, so it says, what is the side length of x in centimeters? It's about 22.52 centimeters. What do you think? We got a lot of time. Let's go ahead and set this next guy up at least. All right, so the next one, I'm going to erase this because we might be using something that we didn't. Okay, so let's look at number 2. It says, find theta. So that's a theta. It looks like a circle with a line through. You may have seen like sororities, fraternities that use Greek letters. It is literally just like an X. Don't worry. People just like to use theta, thinking they're all fancy like that. Right? Y'all fancy? So this is just like an X or a Y. This just happen to be a Greek letter. And then we have some numbers on here. We want to find theta rounded to the nearest hundredths in this right triangle. So this is a right triangle, even though they didn't put a box on it. But we can assume, where does the box go? Right here. So that is your right angle. Remember, it has to be a right triangle, so they have to either show it in a picture or say the word. And we're safe because they did actually say it was a right triangle, so we know it is 90 degrees. Okay, so are we finding an angle or a side in this one? Angle, because it says to find theta, so he is an angle. So let's put a little note up here that this is an angle. And this is going to tell us when we do our buttons, what are we going to do instead? We're going to hit second. So I'm going to put a little note here and put, we're going to use the second sine, cosine, tangent buttons, right? Because we're finding an angle. Okay, so go ahead, circle your angle. Which angle do you think we're going from? The theta angle. So circle the theta angle. Because remember, we're not allowed to go from this angle. And that angle doesn't even have anything up there, so we're clearly not picking him. So do circle this angle. And that means go ahead and label your sides so they match whatever angles. I mean, if you're standing on that angle, does that make any sense? Okay, so what did you put where? This was what? Hypotenuse, okay. Opposite is this naked side, right? And this is adjacent down here. Happy with that? So which angle or which piece are we going to be crossing out? Opposite. Okay, so get rid of the opposite. He's out here because he doesn't have anything, nothing to offer us. That means I will be boxing up this one and this one, right? Okay, so let's put down what information do we have stuff about? Hypotenuse and adjacent. So hypotenuse and adjacent. Yeah, which one are we gonna, so let's start looking at our options up here, right? Hypotenuse and adjacent. Can we use sine? No, because we don't have the O, right? Cosine. Hypotenuse and adjacent, hypotenuse and adjacent. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So we are going to be using cosine. And if you want to get technical, we're actually using inverse cosine with the little baby -1, aren't we? That's about what we're about to do, right? And I think we should probably stop there for today. So you should tuck this into page 50. So you have it for tomorrow. Pick up your calculators right now. Change the mode to not degrees. Put it in something else, just so the next class has to change it so they know where the button is. Pick up your calculator. How do we change it? What do we pick? Degree.